Today we're talking about a vehicle with G.I. Joe line that is not a transformer, but certainly transforms, and its driver. Yes, you guessed it, today we're talking about TOLLBOOTH and the Bridge Layer, aka the Tossing Cross. Before we jump into that, I do want to take a moment to say thank you to everybody. We got over the 50,000 subscriber mark. Huge milestone. I couldn't have done it without you, and now we're on the road to 100K. Let's go. TOLLBOOTH was born in Boise, Idaho as Chuck Goren. His name is rather funny, being that he's named after Charles Goren, a famous bridge player. So bridge player, bridge layer, that's the card game Bridge, whereas our Chuck, today we're talking about, today lays bridges. As early as 6 years old, Charles had an affinity for building things. His parents purchased a construction set for him for Christmas one year, and he wore it out by the next holiday season, and he kept building more and more. His constructs kept getting bigger and bigger. After high school, Goren went to MIT, that's the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he earned a master's degree in engineering. He needed more of a challenge, some more excitement, and so he joined the United States Army, earning a 12 Bravo Combat Engineer MOS, along with a transportation specialty as an 88 Mike. His FSS file card changes that to Bridge Layer Driver with a secondary MOS of Sapper. That's a combat engineer still, but as a secondary now. It adds that he graduated top of his class from the Sapper Leader course at the Combat Engineer School at Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri, which is also where motor transport operators train. He then asked to be assigned to the G.I. Joe team. Then, quote, TOLLBOOTH performs a variety of combat engineering duties such as laying or clearing minefields and building bridges. He's proficient in demolitions, field defenses, and general construction, as well as road and airfield fabrication and repair. He's got the tools to blast a pass through solid rock or lay down a 4-lane blacktop if needed. His teammates are constantly amazed at his ability to build a bridge out of whatever's there. As one of the team's main 88 Mikes, he'd also need to be familiar with things like the logistics of convoy operations. This means coordinating with convoy commanders along with the A&L, CLS, LZ, REC, and gun truck teams, understanding convoy movement and what to do with your vehicle when you're reacting to contact and need to keep moving or forced to stop. What about casualty evac? Did that LZ team clear a space? Is there a floating rally point? Where's the contact? Where's the kill zone? And how do you break contact? What about a box formation? How do you call for fire? See, drivers also need to know how to identify and deal with unexploded ordnance and IEDs until an EOD team can clear it. Then we can't forget things like load, unload ops from a palletized load system, a PLS, transfers from the load handling system, and using systems in both manual and auto mode. Then there's crop, load unload ops, tie down procedures, PMCS or preventative maintenance checks and service, recovery and maintenance, and how to properly handle dangerous or hazardous materials, hazmat. What about driving through contamination or contested zones or just general austere environments? That means driving with a tactical awareness and maybe while wearing a gas mask or nods or using thermals like a DVE, that's a driver's vision enhancer. Don't forget to check that polarity switch to see if you're on white hot or black hot too. See, my point here is there's a lot more to what TOLLBOOTH does than just being a wheelman for heavy equipment transporters and such. As I mentioned earlier, he'd have gone to Sapper School for a month at Fort Leonard Wood to earn his 12 Bravo MOS. His training there bolstered what he learned as an 88 Mike, so things like airborne water and mountain ops, urban breaching, demolitions, mine clearing, bridge building, to go with his bridge laying, of course, and even road repair, which would be helpful for his 88 Mike MOS, and even airfield construction like I was talking about earlier. It said the course is akin to Ranger School for engineers, allowing for sappers in the breach and for sappers to clear the way. He's listed as an SP5, which was discontinued in 1985. He's effectively an E5 pay grade with a sergeant rank. TOLLBOOTH was released as a driver for the G.I. Joe Tossing Cross Bridge Layer. That was in 85, although more on that date in a moment, right when Greg Berndtson was there and Guy Cassidy was just starting with the line. And while that design looks equal parts Battletech and Mad Max, to me anyhow, the concept and the need for a vehicle like this goes back to the dawn of the tank itself and can be traced to wars before that with shallow water ports. Tossing Cross is powered by an HTS-T2 forced induction 1700 horsepower turbine engine over a titanium alloy hull. It uses hydraulic struts to extend and lay down magnesium alloy road plates as the bridge. It comes with a LTD, which is a laser target designator, and can protect itself with dual cannons that fire 105mm RAP or rocket-assisted projectiles. The Order of Battle, quote, unofficial G.I. Joe handbook, tweaks this a bit. It says the bridge layer is armed with two 152mm anti-tank cannons cannons with 6 rounds each and a pair of 2.75-inch anti-tank or anti-personnel rocket launchers that each have 40 rounds. These are all controlled by electro-optical computer-aided firing systems. The Toss and Cross is 23.4 tons, and that engine we talked about can push the rig up to 44 miles per hour and has a range of 550 miles, so not at top speed. The bridge itself can span 23 feet, and we're talking in story here, not the actual toy. Speaking of actuals, the Joe's version is inspired by the real-life M60 AVLB, or Armored Vehicle Launched Bridge, a scissor bridge on an M60 patent tank hull. But that's not the first version. Let's head back to World War I and work our way forward. In World War I, one of the problems tanks looked to solve was trench warfare. They were meant to roll over the trench and penetrate an enemy's defensive line. This worked well countless times, but many other times when trenches were, say, wider, the tanks themselves were not long enough to roll over the top and became stuck in the very trench they were meant to traverse. Their first solve? Sticks. Bundles of sticks and fascines that they would carry on the hull, then drop in the trench to make a wedge that the tank was able to then get across. Look at these British Mark IV tanks from the Battle of Cambrai. They went from wooden sticks to metal rails around this time. So now let's jump to World War II. This is Major General Percy Hobart, commander of the 79th Armored Division of the British Army, a division that was stood up in preparation for the invasion of Normandy in D-Day. Hobart invented a bunch of armored vehicles that came to be known as Hobart's Funnies. He converted tanks, Churchill tanks in particular, into amphibious tanks, crab mine clearers, flamethrowers, and AVRE, or Armored Vehicle Royal Engineers, ARC, or Armored Ramp Carrier vehicles. These helped Allied forces make beachfall during the invasion. AVREs stuck around, later using Churchill, Chieftain, and even Challenger 2 tank chassis to carry their bridges. AVREs carry assault bridges like the SBG, or Small Box Girder Bridge. Those helped on D-Day, but others like pontoon bridges were instrumental in crossing the Rhine River. Covenant or bridge layers helped during Dunkirk too. One of the earlier dedicated bridge layers was the Valentine bridge layer, a modified Vickers infantry tank from the 40s and 50s. At 30 tons, it could deploy a 32-foot scissor bridge that could carry 30 tons. Makes sense. It should be able to carry the weight of its transporter at a minimum, right? The World War II German Army created the Brückenleger in 1939, a folding bridge on top of a Panzer I. They stopped using these after Operation Barbarossa in 1941 because of reliability issues, but later used the Panzer II and IV chassis that were used to create their newer bridge layers. From about 50 to 59, the U.S. Army used an M60 AVLB, or Armored Vehicle Launch Bridge, and that was the one that was replaced by the M60 AVLB, upon which the G.I. Joe version is based. It was also modular flotation bridge systems like the MAB, or Mobile Assault Bridge, and before self-propelled versions, the pieces were transported by the M812 RBT, a modified M809 6x6, and later the M945 RBT, or Ribbon Bridge Transporter. Others came up in the 1960s like the SRB, or Standard Ribbon Bridge, IRB, or Improved Ribbon Bridge, and deployed via transports in BEBs, or Bridge Erection Boats. Giggity. Those were developed by the Pacific Car and Foundry and the U.S. Army's MERDC, or Mobility Equipment R&D Center. The first of those were used by the U.S. Army in 1976, and then the United States Marine Corps later on. In 1968, the French Army rolled out the AMX-30 bridge layer. The AMX-30 Pluton here is not a bridge layer, but that's pretty damn G.I. Joe if you ask me. From there, the U.S. Army took the M1A2 main battle tank chassis and converted it into the M104 Wolverine because the M60 AVLB was struggling with the weight of the modern main battle tanks and things like the M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. That in turn was replaced by the M1074 JAB, or Joint Assault Bridge System, also on a tank chassis, but that one was on the M1A1. The M1074 uses a Titan bridge, the same one the British Army uses with the Challenger 2 tank chassis, as the Titan AVLB. But it's not just ravines, crevasses, and gaps they need to cross. Another way these are used is to get over rivers. For example, Sweden uses the General Dynamics ELS European Land System Amphibro 400 bridge system that can carry modified MBTs across rivers and lakes. They're modular too and connect together to make ribbon bridges, floating platforms, and the like. GDELS also made Germany's M3 amphibious bridge system for the same function, a vehicle that replaced the M2 rig. The Russians created the MTU-90 bridge layer, which is a bridge system built on a T-90 main battle tank chassis and paired with a TMM-6 heavy bridge building system. Here's what that one looks like. The U.S. Marine Corps has the MKR-18 Logistics Vehicle System Replacement heavy mobility cargo truck, and it carries the IRB pontoon components in an interior bay, while the U.S. Army also has the M1977A2 CB2, or common bridge transporter. It'll also carry a REBS, or Rapidly in Place Bridge System, for Stryker Brigade combat teams and airborne combat engineer companies within infantry BCTs. So let's jump back to Tollbooth now that we went through his vehicle's details. Chuck first appeared in Larry Hama and Marvel Comics' A Real American Hero comic book series with issue 51. Tollbooth was at the Fort Wadsworth camp, aka the chaplain's assistant motor pool, operating the lift to the subsurface staging area and the main Joe facilities underground. He unknowingly let Xandar and Zarana down into the pit, who were there to rescue Zartan, who was in Joe custody at that time. The fact that they had a Dreadnought swamp fire didn't raise any flags for some reason, even as they presented it as a new Joe acquisition. Later, Thunder, who also just debuted, called up to have the pit sealed when they realized they had some uninvited guests, but Tollbooth was tricked again when the swamp fire came back up the lift with Zarana, now disguised as Scarlet, and Xandar masked as Sergeant Slaughter. No bridge layer yet, though. That didn't actually happen until issue 76 during Cobra's Civil War on Cobra Island. At one point in the conflict, after the airfield had been taken by opposition forces, Breaker got aligned to Keelhaul on the USS Flag aircraft carrier, which was parked offshore, so Hawk could radio in for resupply, reinforcements, and logistic support. Heavy equipment was transported via LCT landing craft to the shore. Not only do we get a bridge layer, but it actually tosses its bridge across a stretch of quicksand, allowing vehicles like the Slugger, Havoc, and others to get across. The Slugger is supposed to be Thunder's main vehicle, but it looks like he called the driver Tollbooth and called up the bridge layer, so I don't know. Between that and Ron Wagner's less than stellar art in this issue, it makes for a little confusion. Either way, that got the Mauler, Havoc, and even a Rolling Thunder across, allowing them to flank and then punch through the enemy's western line. When that happened, Zarana ran back to Zartan and Cobra Commander to report, and it was this that compelled Zartan to climb the wreckage and put an arrow into Serpentor's face. It was the beginning of the end for the battle, with Cobra Commander and Dr. Mindbender, who was with the Joes, teaming up to repel Destro now that Serpy was out of the way. In other words, the move from the bridge layer was a critical move, allowing a path toward victory. And that was it for the Marvel era. When IDW picked up Ara with issue 156, we get to see a bridge layer in the main garage at the newest version of the pit. But what about the driver? Tollbooth didn't show up until issue 181, now driving a big green rig, what I think is a Peterbilt 389, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. He was returning with this week's mess supplies and requested ramp access, and little did he know he was being followed by a pair of AGPs. Those are anti-gravity pods normally piloted by Nullifier, but had now deployed a pair of Pythonized Vipers onto Tollbooth's trailer. They were going to break Darklon out, and this has shades of his first whoopsie when the Nox penetrated the pit back in the 80s. We see him next in issue 200, but only in shadow, the same way we see Sergeant Slaughter after a long absence. After the ceremony at the pit to honor the fallen Snake Eyes, we next see Tollbooth operating a heavy lift crane as the team worked to seal up a hidden part of the pit that contained an alien eye, an unresolved story arc that was meant to lead into another Transformers crossover, but that never happened. We also get to see him work in a cement truck here too. Voiced by Michael Bell, Tollbooth and his vehicle appeared in a few episodes of the G.I. Joe Sunbow animated series, albeit with minimal speaking roles or even screen time. He showed up in part 3 of Pyramid of Darkness, pressing the attack against Major Blood in the snowy Arctic at the Mountain of Glass. Alpine caused an avalanche by yodeling loudly, which I'm not sure they teach at mountaineering school, and then Tollbooth used his bridge layer to cross the snow and ice gap to get to Cobra. In Rocket's Red Glare and Satellite Down, Tollbooth used his bridge layer to toss a bridge for the team. Same with an episode called The Germ to help Flint, and then part 1 of Captives of Cobra to help Duke. Tollbooth's first action figure was boxed with the Toss and Cross vehicle. It was a Sears exclusive in 1984 before hitting wide release in 85. This is why his head swivel is different than the other 85 releases, with the updated ball for that full range of motion there. He had another figure in 2013 for the figure subscription service as well. And so what does the future hold for Tollbooth and his bridge layer? I'm not quite sure, but I will say it is teased in 2 places. On the Blowtorch box and the Ostriker box for the classified line, and Retro Cover Girl has a sledgehammer that Tollbooth could use, so we'll see what happens. For now, to sum up Tollbooth, we turn to a quote from Stalker as written on his file card. We're on our way to an objective and come to an obstacle we can't cross. River, crevasse, mountain, whatever. Tollbooth gets us across. He may build a bridge out of whatever's there, blast a pass through solid rock, or lay down a 4-lane blacktop. The man's got magic. And with that, that's a wrap on this one, my friends. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.